Here's Brody Brazil.
You know, it sure is interesting every time I check in on the Las Vegas media and how they're covering the A's and potential relocation to their city and their state. Now, in a way, there's a lot going on because time is ticking down, but in another way, there's not a lot going on. We are absolutely waiting on the A's to submit their language and their request for about $395 million to legislators in the state of Nevada. There's only about a week left to do it, and the regular session on this ends in the first couple days of June. So a tremendous time pressure there. We're still kind of in limbo, though, even though the clock is heavily ticking. And then also this, a couple days ago, that news from Bally's Corporation, some of the maybe premature details that they leaked out about the future of the Tropicana Hotel and that site and the project in general, which then they retracted, and then they put out something else a lot more generic and less detailed. So maybe some confusion, but that brings us to news and media coverage, and let's begin with our friends at Fox 5.
Today, the Oakland A's announced they paid for a study, and they say Clark County overwhelmingly supports a ballpark.
This, by the way, is Jacqueline, who has been covering this story, doing a great job, pretty much on an everyday basis. She's kind of like their lead on this topic. And I got to compliment her, first off, by giving you the most important part of the story first. Because if you lead with something else and then you get to that detail, which she just mentioned there, it doesn't work. She literally begins with the most important thing first. And on that note, let me just rewind the tape and let you hear it one more time.
Today, the Oakland A's announced they paid for a study, and they say Clark County overwhelmingly supports a ballpark. So here's a copy of the findings in their paid study. So if you take a look at the graphs here,
and by the way, she used the language paid study again, just to really make sure you know.
As almost all have heard of the stadium plan, 2/3 support it.
Stadium plan, though, I mean, I don't even know lawmakers have heard of the stadium plan. There's been some rough details, no renderings yet to the public. So maybe they've heard of the stadium idea, but as for the plan, I mean, to be fair, has anybody really heard about it? Let me go back here and play.
As almost all have heard of the stadium plan, 2/3 support it. You see the graph right here, overwhelming support. It says 66%. It looks good.
I think there's going to be a but here, right? But I think I remember that.
On paper, but we have to give you some context here.
There you go. There's more to this story than just that.
700 people were surveyed. This only mentioned the I-15 location. So folks were surveyed between April 29th to May 5th.
The I-15 location is also commonly known as the Wild Wild West site. It's those 49 acres, the old site in Las Vegas, the first one on the other side of the Strip, on the other side of I-15. And those 700 people surveyed, if I'm correct in doing a little bit of research on the actual study here and the survey, 700 people contacted by text message in this survey. I believe that's how it was conducted.
The Tropicana site was announced on May 9th. The survey claims support could be higher for the Tropicana location. The study says, quote, even after hearing an attack from opponents about taxpayer money going to an out-of-state billionaire, a 2/3 majority support the plan, even the plan to use up $500 million in existing public taxes and fees.
So to be clear, this survey was based on a totally different figure at a totally different location in a totally different time frame. And I also want to point out, if that name, the Melman Group, sounds familiar to you, I mean, then you're a hardcore Oakland A's fan. The Melman Group once represented the East Oakland Stadium Alliance, remember them, in their efforts to stop the A's from getting land approvals at Howard Terminal. That's right, the Melman Group, like within the last year or two, represented an organization that was trying to stop the A's from landing at Howard Terminal. And now they're here putting on this research and this survey.
When we did focus groups, interviews, we interviewed thousands of people in the local community. We heard loud and clear, make it easy to get to.
So on April 20th, President Dave Cavil told us they had been speaking to thousands of locals. After this study came out, Fox 5 asked the A's organization for clarification. When did this happen?
That's a very fair question. Because with everything going on, right, and changes and a lot of things being realistically fluid, like they kind of need to be under this time crunch, when did you even have time to put on those types of questions and do it accurately and really get a good sense?
So leadership says focus groups and feasibility studies were done back in 2021 and 2022. No word on what questions were actually asked.
It's 2023 right now.
When could we see the A's ballpark bill?
That is the most, pressing question right now. Will they get it done in a regular session? Will this go to a special session?
Lombardo's office says it's still to be determined. The deadline for lawmakers to pass a bill has to be May 26. It would have $395 million in financing in the form of a tax district. We've heard your concerns about the impact of tax breaks. Commissioner Tick Segerblum says he's weighing Clark County's benefits of less tax revenue.
So Nevada, right, is one half of this. Clark County in southern Nevada is the other side of it. So we don't know the language being submitted to the state of Nevada, but we also don't exactly know where Clark County sits on this. Here's an answer to that.
But we at the County Commission are looking very closely at whatever package they produce, because we want to make sure that the cost benefit is there for us and the taxpayers. And we have lots of things we can build. We need a new children's hospital. We need lots of other things. So let's analyze this, make sure it's well worth it. If it is, then we'll go forward with it. But if not, it's a good idea, but I don't see why taxpayers should support something that doesn't help us.
So leaders do have to weigh heavily the potential tourism benefits and potential to bring even more live events in a future ballpark here.
Which obviously is going to happen. You can't just build a baseball stadium at that intersection and think that that's it. Like in Las Vegas, it's got to be used 365 days a year. Well, it's got to be used a majority of the year, not just baseball season.
So Bally's says their ballpark would bring in 2.5 million visitors a year.
If you just do the numbers, and to be fair, like the numbers based on a baseball season do not get you there. Maybe if you hold other events, but how many could you do? Could you compete with Allegiant Stadium and T-Mobile Arena? There's a lot to be sorted out. But just by the way, to get to that number of, 2.5 million, you'd need to sell out every single 30,000 seat A's game and then some, right? So to understand that, this is a pretty high bar being set. Okay, that's the end of Jacqueline's report. Appreciate that. Okay, over to 102.7 VGS Radio.
The Oakland Athletics. I was actually excited at one point. I was like, we're going to get baseball. This is great. And the more I see from this team.
Yeah, what a mess, right?
I know this isn't traditional news coverage, but it is important to get it from people who you trust. And look, I've shown a clip of Amy and Sean in their show before, and you can tell they are true Las Vegans. They're into their teams. And you'd think watching this, they would be complete homers about getting everything done, about grabbing this team as quickly as possible, but it's actually quite the contrary.
They're going to knock down the Tropicana to build this thing.
Yeah.
Which I, first of all, hate this.
I hate it. I feel
It's the Tropicana. It's old. It's outdated. But listen to their reasoning here.
No, I still am not super convinced that that's where it's going to go.
This is an opinion on the inside. Somebody down there, living there, saying that they're not even sure. They don't feel like it's going to happen there.
I still think that
the Rio.
It has to be the Rio.
It has to be the Rio.
The Rio was the very first place that they even mentioned. This was years ago before they were even talking about the A's. It was just a team. Give us whatever baseball team to put there. And I feel like it's a deserving spot, a deserving casino to blow up for sure.
The Rio's worse than the Tropicana, huh?
I'm serious.
But
I feel bad for the Rio. It's
here's the deal.
There's two things in there.
They have a street. The Tropicana has a street.
Now, this is more insight and understanding that I don't have, right? This is a local who's saying this about, iconic spots on the Las Vegas Strip. Certain hotels have streets. The Tropicana is one, and you're about to take it away.
Flamingo has a street. Sahara has a street.
Just not something that I would have even thought of. That's why I'm tuning in to see what they're saying down there.
If you got a street, you should stay. We always blow everything up. We blow everything up in this city. It's so frustrating. Oh, what are we going to do? Give the sign of the Neon Museum? Great, but like, why can't we have just a little something? Like, if you're going to blow up anything, blow up the Excalibur.
I concur with that wholeheartedly. Definitely have my vote on
We
that.
agree on that.
I mean, I guess I haven't been in there in a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, I don't know anybody that's been in the Rio in a decade.
In the Rio, well, there's the Rio. Yeah, the
That's
Rio's
what I'm
a whole,
saying.
yeah, the
I think
masquerade.
that's where it should go, but my opinion doesn't matter. So I don't know. I think I'm still not convinced that the Tropicana is going to be the landing spot. And I'm also still not convinced that they are for sure going to come here. Like, this is so much drama, even for me. And I think it's just not even the good drama. It's just like
Well, and what
really back and forth.
You've been hearing people say, okay, so they're lowering what they want for public money down to $350 million now.
$395, but I get it.
That's what Oakland was going to give you.
$375. It's close. Like, it's all ballparked, right? Like, they're asking for $395 in Las Vegas. But to his point, let me rewind that for a second. To his point, I never really thought about it that way. The city of Oakland has already secured $375 million in infrastructure money for Howard Terminal from the state of California and from the federal government, not even from Oakland's general fund. $375 by Oakland, and they're asking for $395 in Nevada.
Well, and what
Really back and forth.
You've been hearing people say, okay, so they're lowering what they want for public money down to $350 million now.
Like, here's the most important part he just said.
That's what Oakland was going to give you. So why don't you stay in Oakland? Like, you know, the whole thing's very silly. But like I say, all right, if you're going to build it anywhere on that corner, which I don't think you should build at all, but Excalibur, and then seventh inning stretch, you have Tournament of Kings come in.
Now, look, the Excalibur land, not for sale. Like, now we're getting away from reality, to be fair. Like, this is, but I mean, just the speculation of this, it's just interesting.
Right there on the field. Boom, jousting.
Very curious what we'll do with making that special. You know, hockey is definitely different here.
Oh, yeah, it's
Football
awesome.
is definitely different here.
I mean, I've been wondering about that all along. There's, again, somebody who is declaring it on their radio program.
Very curious what Vegas thing they will put in a baseball game. It very well could be that.
And I'm just saying, baseball's different in the amount of games, the type of crowd that goes there, the time of year, the way that it's played. Sports aren't just, all sports, all the same thing. It's a different fan base. It's a different audience. It's a totally different ask and draw.
Team's cheap.
Yeah.
Team is cheap. So, I mean, historically cheap. I looked at the past 20 years. They have not spent more than league average salary-wise in at least the last 20 years. Like, they don't spend money on the team. Now, they could, maybe, if they move here, but, like, who's to say? All I'm thinking about is traffic, because it's 81 games a year. It's double what you're going to have for your Golden Knights or whatever.
I mean, they're really going in on this right now. They've brought up, like, all the heavy points here on a radio station that I believe is for popular music. Like, they are really going in on this topic here.
81 games a year, home games.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the Raiders, you're there on Dean Martin. There's a whole bunch of different ways to get there. You don't have to cross the strip.
And that's
T-Mobile-
only 9 games.
Yes, it's 9. It's yeah,
games.
well, 8 or 9. Coin flip, just depends on the year.
Yeah.
I guess they're not thinking about playoffs anytime soon, huh? I kid.
And then you have T-Mobile Arena. Yeah, it's quote unquote on the strip, but like you can take Frank Sinatra. There's ways to get there. I never, ever drive on the strip to get to a game for the Golden Knights. But you're going to have to do it here. And like, just say that the Oakland Athletics or the Las Vegas Athletics through some miracle make it into the playoffs. Just picture the
Oh, now come on. They will find their way into the playoffs. We all know that. Forget what he said about, spending. They always do. As long as it's the same front office, they will find their way into the playoffs.
hellscape. It is a Sunday. They're in the ALCS. The Golden Knights have a game, and the Raiders are playing.
Wow.
All at the same time.
Yeah.
Could happen. I mean, it's a once in a decade situation. Could happen, though.
This is such a big valley. You couldn't pick anywhere else.
But the thing is, like, you said, quote unquote, the same thing when it was Wild Wild West. The quote unquote, you said, what if it's Sunday and this.
This
So,
is
like,
even
there's
worse.
But I mean, so I'm not going to lose sleep over any of it until they truly start the first ceremony and they dig the first thing of dirt.
That's like the same thing people said here in Oakland about Howard Terminal. People who were for and against it. Show me a shovel.
for the Raiders, because there's so much back and forth, and clearly these people don't know what they want or know what they're doing. So I think we have to sit back and watch. I mean, it's Wednesday and we've heard 3 different spots where they're going to go this week.
I know.
So
It's
I
gross.
can't, I'm not keeping up. It's too much for me. I've got too much real drama to
Don't we all?
focus on.
The law should be, if you have a street named after your place, you get to stay. Flamingo can never be knocked down.
Wow.
Tropicana should never be knocked down. There it is. That's my law. That's my rule. Governor Tempesta, 2027, 8? I don't even know when that happens.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't
Not
know. Yeah, I don't think I can pull it off. I got to be honest.
Amy and Sean. Okay, let's move on here. I think this is another
More progress to report
NBC local station, Channel 3 in Las Vegas.
tonight in the deal to bring the Oakland A's to a new stadium on the Las Vegas Strip. Good evening, everyone. Glad you're with us. I'm Jim Snyder.
Good evening, Jim. I always like the way that newscasts start, by the way. I kind of start a pregame show like that. Good evening, everybody. Brody Brazil with Dave Stewart.
And I'm Latoya Silman, but the governor and state lawmakers up in Carson City, they're still waiting to look over the legislation needed to make that happen. News 3, Steve Wolford is live on the south end of the Strip with the latest on where this all stands. Steve?
Yeah, that's right, you guys. We now have official word of a binding agreement between the A's and the corporation that owns the land where the Tropicana now stands for an eventual A's ballpark.
Now, this was published a few days ago. It seems like it might have aired even a few days before that. I'm not sure if the realization of this, again, this is from Monday, we're at Thursday. I don't know exactly the timing of when this was broadcast, but let's keep playing it here.
We'll have more on that in a moment, but this, as you mentioned, isn't going anywhere right now without state lawmakers in Carson City having a say. But as of tonight, they are still waiting for a draft of that bill.
Right, and it was supposed to happen last week, then early this week, now maybe early next week. And like I've been saying all along, if it's going to happen in a regular session, which it does not seem like it at this point, time is definitely running out. And it's not, I don't know how it's going to be presented with that short of a window to try and actually realistically get something done.
I believe over the weekend, what you saw were a lot of local folks getting involved. I mean, the local government entities wanted to, get some issues ironed out.
District 18 State Senator Scott Hammond on the waiting game for state lawmakers to see the legislation required before the Oakland A's can relocate to Las Vegas.
I have been told that we can anticipate that sometime at the beginning of this week, we should get a bill in here.
That was the beginning of this week, like a couple days ago.
I think it's going to, they've ironed out, I think, a lot of the issues, a lot of concerns.
Concerns include parking and transportation around the Tropicana site.
Which, by the way, I'm understanding that they've been doing a lot of research and they have to get some things figured out here. I mean, with Howard Terminal, remember that process, and EIR and environmental studies and research, traffic, ingress, egress, all that stuff. You can't just approve all of this without knowing that it can actually logistically happen. So that stuff, those procedures are happening behind the scenes.
For the $1.5 billion retractable dome stadium.
As we speak, I believe a sort of a transportation mobility impact study
There you go.
To make sure that this facility or this particular location is a really good location.
Bally's and Gaming and Leisure Properties Incorporated, which owns the 35 acres of land where the Trop now stands, issued a statement today saying they'll assign 9 acres to the Athletics or related stadium authority.
9 acres, by the way, on the southeast, back corner of the property, behind the Tropicana high-rise right now.
For a ballpark that'll seat approximately 30,000 fans. But groundbreaking is subject to public financing legislation being approved and a relocation agreement from Major League Baseball.
On a timeline, we're focused right now on the public-private partnership.
A's president Dave Kaval says the relocation approval will happen after state lawmakers vote on the financing partnership.
Once that's done later this year, and next year, we could actually break ground and then open the stadium by 2027.
But that all depends on how lawmakers feel about the public's $395 million share of the financing and how to cover it.
Which could all come from the state of Nevada, could partially come from the state, some from the county. As of right now, and news this morning, the state says they're only in for maybe 150 to 195 million. That's reporting from the Nevada Independent saying that.
What we're talking about is a tax district. And that tax district will be basically people will be paying for the stadium by visiting the area. That's how we're going to be paying for it.
Well, I reached out to the Clark County Commission to find out if they had any concerns about the bill as it's being drafted in Carson City. I was told that they would not be available for comment. But as soon as we learn of state lawmakers actually getting a draft of the bill to begin consideration, we will definitely be sure to pass it along.
Yeah, and Steve doing a good job there. It's hard to really fully report on this when nobody has the details or the answers. It's all kind of behind closed doors right now. Okay, there's the weather team from, what's that, CBS 8? Let's hear what they have to say. Whoa! We've got production value. We've got a whole, stinger intro here. So we call it in TV a stinger. Watch this. Ooh, the A's logo flies in, then all the baseballs and the music. Looks very 90s, by the way.
Wow, we have been talking about it for weeks now.
By the way, the CBS station here, they have already adopted the Las Vegas Athletics logo. They've made it up in their graphics department. They photoshopped it in. They're already going with that. They're literally changing the name of the team that has not moved yet. But anyway, I digress.
Oakland A's moving to Las Vegas, but today, Bally's, who announced that binding agreement with the A's to take over the site of the Tropicana, they kind of backpedaled a little bit.
Yeah.
8 News Now investigator Kyle Payne joining us in studio to explain. Kyle?
Denise, you got it. Yesterday, Bally's and the A's announced a binding agreement, and we reported that if it goes forward, the Trop will very likely be demolished. But today, Bally's came out with a 2-page Q&A saying plans are only, quote, in the very preliminary stages and not finalized for a ballpark.
You know what's crazy, too? Hearing Kyle talk about the demolition of the Tropicana. If the A's actually do move here, because of their move, the historic Oakland Coliseum, demolished. The historic Tropicana Hotel, demolished. Just think about that.
I think that there's a greater likelihood that it happens than not.
Clark County Commissioner Jim Gibson, in an interview you'll only see on 8 News Now, seems to know about as much today as he did a few weeks ago.
Well, I mean, and again, we're all kind of waiting on figuring out what's happening here.
See on 8 News Now, seems to know about as much today as he did a few weeks ago when we interviewed him then. Would you say economically, financially, this is a done deal?
No.
That was when the Oakland A's said they were tying up land on the other side of the Strip before the latest news that they might tear down and redevelop the Tropicana, which is owned by Bally's.
Isn't it amazing? As I record this, we're a day short of a month since that initial announcement, the 49 acres of Wild Wild West casino land, and so much has happened, even in a month.
And today, Bally sent out this 2 pages of Q&A, which was short on specifics and heavy on if.
This, by the way, was the revised version. The one they had put out the night before on the evening of May 15th to their employees was a lot more detailed.
What's going on?
Well, I don't know the answer to that.
What Gibson does know is what we've been hearing for weeks, that the legislature needs to present a bill with specifics on how all this will work.
Is that Oracle Park? I think it is. Yeah, it is. They took Oracle Park. It's just kind of blurry. They took Oracle Park and superimposed it on the Tropicana Hotel site. Now, the one thing that they didn't do correctly here, I mean, first off, I wonder if that's to scale. It might be, and I would hope that if you're going to do this proper and you're really going to lay it out, do everything to scale. Don't put a small ballpark on a big site or a huge ballpark on a small site. That doesn't work, and I've seen others do that, by the way. You can't just arbitrarily superimpose renderings and think that it's all to scale. But the one thing here is that ballpark, as the reporting of the Las Vegas Review-Journal says, is not going to be on that northwest corner close to the Strip, like on the Strip. It's going to be in the southeast corner, down by where it says East Reno Avenue down there, the parking lot where you see the cars in the bottom right of that site. That's where the ballpark's going to be, behind the new casino and hotel construction.
That bill might materialize this week, and when it does, Gibson says the commission will evaluate, crunch the numbers, and see how the pieces all fit together.
It's going to be a short time period to put all that together if you don't already have it all now, by the way.
There's no answers.
Well, I won't quarrel with you.
Another person he won't quarrel with is this Clark County resident who spoke at today's council meeting.
Is this going to be a burden on the community and the taxpayers?
Who pointed out the A's, who say they're expecting some 30,000 fans a game and 2.5 million people a year, are drawing historically low number of fans.
It's a different situation in Oakland right now.
Some of that might be because they're leaving, but it also might be because they have baseball's worst record.
There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things going on.
9-34.
If the ownership is going to spend $1 billion+ to come here, they understand that they have to have a team that is competitive to succeed here.
In our interview, Gibson also said this deal with the A's, quote, cannot be a rope around our throats. He also told me whatever ends up
It's very specific.
At the Tropicana site needs to be a functioning, contributing part of that area of the Strip. But in the end, he said, let's get about the business of funding and building a stadium. Denise?
Okay, there you have it, a sampling of the Las Vegas media, what they're saying, how they're saying it, their perspectives. Let me know what you think about this video in the comment section below. Since you made it here all the way to the end, thumbs up on it. I would greatly appreciate that. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel so that I can see you next time.